Greetings and welcome to today's event. I'm Dr. Keitra Armstrong, a professor in sport management and also the director of diversity, equity, inclusion in the School of Kinesiology. And I am just so excited for what you are in store for. I want to let you know that this event is sponsored by the Health Sciences units. And those units consist of the School of Dentistry, School of Kinesiology, School of Nursing, College of Pharmacy, the School of Public Health, School of Social Work, the Medical School, Office of Health Equity and Inclusion, Michigan Medicine, Michigan Institute for Clinical Health Research, Flint College of Health Science, and Flint School of Nursing. Now, each year, one of the health science units takes a turn at hosting events that are associated with the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. Well, this year's Kinesiology's turn to host. So I want to say a huge thank you to the Health Sciences Committee for the support, as well as the Health Sciences Dean for also supporting our endeavors. A special thanks to the Kinesiology Planning Team, Emily Matthews, Devaney Rosebrock, LaJoya Orr. So thank you all so much. Now, our theme is body politics. Let me back up a second. The university's theme is where do we go from here? In the spirit of kinesiology and movement, we're going to center the body and the politics that bodies are subject to because of the characteristics, if they're raced, if they're abled, if they're gendered, if they're aged. And it is our contention that movement can be a source of empowerment. We know body politics influence and leads to health equities. And we, particularly for communities of color, Black communities in particular. And so it's our contention that movement can be a source of empowerment. Now, Dr. King told us that deeds that are uninformed by educated thought can take a wrong direction. Deeds that are uninformed by educated thought can take a wrong direction. So we must be armed with knowledge. So to arm us with knowledge, we have assembled such an esteemed panelist that's going to drop some knowledge on us today. And I'm just going to give you a very cursory introduction because the time just won't permit me to go through the list of accolades that our panelists have amassed. So in alphabetical order, let me introduce our panelists to you, and then we'll begin. First, we have Dr. Vanessa Barrow, a podiatrist and owner of Soul Aesthetics, specializing in aesthetic and regenerative medicine of the foot and ankle. Dr. Barrow is a former cheerleader at the University of Michigan, but what we love most about her is that she's one of ours. She graduated from School of Kinesiology and Athletic Training. When she was working in athletic training, helping some athletes like Tom Brady, Charles Woodson. So we have Dr. Barrows to thank for the success that they have had long-term.
Morning.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Barrows, and welcome virtually back to your alma mater.
Absolutely.
Next, we have Dr. Neha Gote, assistant professor in kinesiology and community health at the University of Illinois. She's director of the exercise psychology lab, and her research focuses on the cognitive, the bio, the psycho, the social implications of physical activity. She's doing some interesting research on exercise and cancer and some other things. And she's going to talk to us about yoga as a non-traditional form of movement. So welcome, Dr. Gote.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We also have next is Dr. Sam Hodge. Dr. Hodge is a professor in kinesiology in the Department of Human Sciences in the College of Education and Human Ecology at The Ohio State University. His scholarship intersects diversity, disability, and social justice. He's a fellow in the National Association of Kinesiology in Higher Education and the first African-American recipient of the Society of Health and Physical Education Scholar Award. Full transparency, Dr. Hodge and I actually were students back in the day at The Ohio State University. We worked together. So you see, there's proof positive that the Buckeyes and the Wolverines can get along. So welcome. Thank you, Dr. Hodge.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Nicole Keith. Dr. Keith is a professor in the Department of Kinesiology and the Associate Dean of Faculty Affairs in the School of Health and Human Sciences at Indiana University. She's a research scientist at the IU Center for Aging Research in the IU School of Medicine. She is also newly crowned the president of the American College of Sports Medicine. And this is no small feat. She is the first person of color, the first Black woman to achieve such distinction. And we are so proud of her. Her research focuses on community-based participatory research of physical activity and health equity. So welcome, Dr. Keith.
Thanks, great to be here.
So let's kick this off. Let's get started. Now, I mentioned with Dr. Hodge that you received an award, the Scholar Award, and one of your nominators said that one of the many reasons that you were deserving of such an award was because of your advancement in the field of adaptive physical education. Oftentimes when we talk about movement, we assume movement. We don't address those who have impairments and challenges that prevent their full movement. Tell us what adaptive physical education is and what advancements have been made.
All right, happy to do so. I will share a screen with some information in that regard. Okay, adaptive physical education, briefly stated, is physical education programming designed specifically for students with disabilities. The broader context is, in terms of adaptive physical activity, goes into sports and recreation, any type of environments where movement and exercise take place. But specific to education, it is primarily the K through 12 population. In terms of advancements, understanding that adaptive physical activity, physical education is similar to education in general, that there has been a dearth of research and literature as it relates to persons of color, particularly students of color. And there has, however, been an increase in scholarship as it relates to the education of students of color who have disabilities in the literature, as well as an increased focus on culturally competent teachers in their preparation to be able to teach effectively such students. Among the challenges, there are a number of challenges, too many to articulate at this time, but among the challenges are the overrepresentation of students of color in special education. This is a generational, long-term problem, and the underrepresentation of teachers of color. Similar to education overall, most teachers in the teacher workforce are white and mostly women. Here I indicate Exhibit 29. I just wanted to share some data. I won't spend a lot of time with this, but just to give an indication that there are over 6 million students ages 6 through 21 in our schools across the nation identified as receiving services under what is called the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is the primary act, the primary law that requires and guarantees the education of students with disabilities. What you will see in this first column are the ethnic and racial categories identified by the Department of Education, Special Education. As you can see, there are several different columns, and the total number here and then the number within those groups are indicated in this column here, where I have the pointer station. What you will notice is, keep in mind that in terms of the overall population in the United States, African Americans represent about 12 to 15% of the population. It's indicated at about 9% on the risk index. Risk index basically gives us the percentage. The risk index here indicates that about 9% of students in our schools have some type of identified disability, about 9%. So close to 1 out of 10. That's a pretty large size of students with disabilities in our schools. And most of those, within that percentage, most of those have learning disabilities, attention deficit, activity types of disabilities. But what you will notice that's identified in red is that American Indian, Alaskan Native represent about 15% of those students who have disabilities. Black, African Americans, 12%, and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders about 14%. The risk index in the last column represents, in comparison to all the other racial groups, what is the likelihood or ratio of individuals as it relates to these different demographics. So what we see with American Indian, Alaska Native is about more than 1.5 times more likely to have a disability or be identified as having a disability than all other groups combined. Similarly for African American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders. So I present that data to indicate that this overrepresentation still exists. It has always existed in the United States, and part of it has to do with identification, selectivity, and those kinds of issues. And so that's one of the areas where we who are in this particular field give our concentration and focus to.
That's very good. And we sincerely appreciate that. And one of the things that I forgot to mention when I was introducing the panel, what you will notice is that our panelists represent expertise in the education, the science, and the practice of kinesiology and health sciences domains. And so we really appreciate the work you've done in the education space, Dr. Hodge, in bringing attention to the disparity that bodies that have certain disabilities, because we can clearly see what you just articulated, the risks are high. And it looks like the way that we service them is probably not appropriate based on what you talked about, the underrepresentation of faculty of color, teachers of color, to understand the unique dynamics and the unique intersection. Thank you so much for that. I want to go to you next, Dr. Keith. I read where you said, I saw what physical activity could do to make people healthier in so many ways. I knew I no longer wanted to be a bench scientist, but instead a physical activity researcher. So tell us what you learned about the benefits of physical activity that made you giddy inside to pursue and dedicate your passion to health equity and physical activity.
So I can start with the generation of that story. When I was a student, a PhD student at the University of Connecticut, we had a contract from the Department of Defense between Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield. And the DoD wanted to know if women were put on Depo-Provera, which is a form of contraceptive that stops the menstrual cycle or slows it, if it would affect their ability to heat, acclimatize, and train in terms of cardiovascular fitness and muscle strength and endurance. And so I will say our research demonstrated the answer is no. However, so I should be clearer, the answer is it does not negatively impact a woman's ability to train. However, these women were college students, 18 to 22 years old. They were untrained, and they went through this protocol that was similar to boot camp. And I watched them become these, average students who were not very confident over a period of 6 months of going through this exercise training, becoming more confident, doing better in school, having these really strong physiques, and something that we gave to them, exercise that they could do for the rest of their lives. And I was training to do thermal physiology. And I thought I could do thermal physiology, or I could give exercise to people for the rest of their lives. And I chose the latter for that reason. And that's where it started. What we know exercise does for people, I feel if I go through that, I'm preaching to the audience. Everybody probably who showed up for this webinar knows that exercise slows or prevents chronic disease. Everybody probably in this webinar knows that it's great for cognition, that it benefits people with mild cognitive impairment. It helps kids do better in school. What this is about, what we're talking about today, is who gets it and who doesn't, and who is prepared to make sure that the people who can't as easily access physical activity understand that and provide opportunities for people to be physically active where they live with what they have. And so it's very important, not just for us as educators and scientists, but everyone from a city planner to policymakers to politicians to understand that providing opportunities to be physically active within one's own community is imperative for longevity, health, and productivity. It's good for business, and it's good for people, and it's important to everyone.
Well said. Well said. I also want to get you to talk about the other part of your passion, because this has to be a labor of love to be the president of a national association, or you're a glutton for punishment, or perhaps a little bit of both, right? Talk about what the American College of Sport Medicine is and what groups it consists of.
Sure. So the American College of Sports Medicine is a professional organization with 50,000 members and certified professionals internationally. So it's US based, but we're in, I believe, 37 other countries. I might have that number wrong. There are basic scientists, there are physicians, and there are educators and allied health professionals. There are also fitness professionals who are members of this organization that looks at the science and practice around physical activity, exercise, and sports medicine. I will say that you said a glutton for punishment and a labor of love, and yes, it's both. And people frequently ask, "Oh, how did you become president?" And it's because I worked really hard. I saw something that wasn't quite right with the organization, and I worked really hard to fix it, and I'm still working really hard to fix it. That the leadership and the membership at one point wasn't representative of the people that we were being trained to serve. And so we know that the majority of athletes, collegiate athletes in D1 programs are Black. And we know that many of the people who go on to be professional athletes are also Black. But the people in the American College of Sports Medicine were not comprised of underrepresented minorities. And I joined the organization 27 years ago and was literally the only Black person in the room in many of the sessions that I attended. And I had to question, is that for me or not? And I decided it is for me. This is something that's important for all people of color. And so I went about the process of fixing that. And we have a greater representation in our membership. We're getting a greater representation in our leadership. And am really honored because the members, regardless of color, saw my vision, they've supported my vision over the last 15 years and elected me president because they thought that it was important that somebody who thought like me and looked like me was a leader in their organization, in our organization.
Well, I have no doubt that ACSM is in great hands with you at the helm. And I will say, we need people like you in the room where it happens. So, you know, building on the theme, what's the name of the Broadway? Hamilton, that's it. In the room where it happens, it's important that you're in that space. So we appreciate what you're doing. I want to go now to Dr. Gote. And I should also welcome you back to Michigan. I learned that you spent some time at Wayne State. And while you were here, you did some research that really looked at the intersection of race and environment. And I would also say, while we're going to talk about race, we're also talking about the intersections, race and gender and class and ability and age, et cetera. So Dr. Gote, you did some research that with the Michigan Center of Urban African Aging on physical activity and functional fitness. Share with us the highlights of what that research revealed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share my screen too, just so the audience have an idea of what these resource centers are. I was fortunate enough to get funded through these resource centers. So there are multiple centers across the United States. This is an initiative by NIA, which is the National Institute on Aging. And their purpose is to establish these centers for research across the U.S. focused on minority aging and the science of minority aging. So their work is really broad. They span various areas. Like you can see, the priority areas are from social, behavioral, economic research on aging, developing infrastructure. There is some bench science work. There is translational research that would apply to the communities. There is also a variety of outreach programming that each of the centers do across the United States. So the MCUAR, or the Michigan Center for Urban Research, that is a center that is a partnership between University of Michigan, Wayne State University, and to my knowledge now, Michigan State University is also trying to partner in. So we have a broader reach across the state of Michigan. So I was fortunate to be mentored by Dr. James Jackson, who was at University of Michigan and has really established a legacy of research on minority aging and the science. So as part of this experience, I was awarded a small fund where I could connect with older adults in the Detroit metro areas, in and around Wayne State University, and really try to understand their physical activity behaviors, their barriers and access-related barriers to physical activity, and overall health and function. So we call this a cross-sectional study. So we just collected data from over 100 older adults, African-American, living in and around the Detroit areas. We really found some interesting trends. This was really my first project in and of itself that involved minority research standalone. And so for me, it was a big learning experience in many ways. We did some focus groups, and I think those were our most productive experiences, talking to smaller groups of these individuals living in the communities. And so many barriers that came up were really things that as researchers we may not have even thought about. I remember speaking with one older gentleman, and he said that he is motivated to exercise, but he's afraid to go out for a walk because there are street dogs and there is a lot of violence in his neighborhood. And for me, it was really eye-opening because oftentimes as researchers, we read about these experiences, but we don't necessarily think about generalizing it or translating or overcoming these barriers in ways that would still help us promote exercise in these populations. So we certainly learned that there are a number of neighborhood and environmental barriers that can be unique to certain populations, perhaps more specifically to this population that we were studying within some of the Detroit areas. We also looked at their physical activity patterns. So we gave each of our participants an activity monitor, and that monitor basically is very much like a pedometer that goes on your hip, and you wear it around for 7 days. It gives us some data about what kinds of physical activities do these individuals engage in. Is it light exercise, or is it vigorous exercise? What is the intensity of exercise and movement? And we learned that by and large, these individuals engaged in light exercise. We saw really 0 to none individuals that engaged in what is often recommended, which is that moderate to vigorous physical activity. You hear that all the time through the CDC organizations. That is the current guideline in the United States for physical activity promotion, that the activity needs to be moderate to vigorous intensity. And we found that these individuals had very little to none of that intensity of activity. And looking more closely into the data, we realized that there were so many other concerns that perhaps prevented these individuals from engaging in that intensity of activity. On average, the population we came across was obese. They had a variety of chronic health conditions. So can we really expect this population to go out and engage in moderate to vigorous exercise safely? And that was another kind of a self-reflective question that came about from that data set. So really, by and large, we have published a couple of our manuscripts based on that data set. But what we at the end of the day found was in this population, in fact, even light exercise was a good predictor of health and health outcomes. So you don't necessarily have to get a gym membership. You don't necessarily have to engage in that high intensity activity. You can even just go for a walk or do some home-based activity in this day and age with COVID-19. So there are ways that you can choose to do light intensity activities, and those are still associated with positive health outcomes.
Listen, thank you very much, because, oftentimes these prescriptions are made of what individuals need to do, but they're often made from a place of privilege, assuming they have safe neighborhoods, assuming they have resources, assuming that, there are other elements structurally that will allow them to be physically active. So your work in identifying these barriers in the neighborhood and the other social barriers are really, really, really critical. So thank you for the work that you're doing in that space. So I want to go to Dr. Barrow now. You're doing some innovative, cutting edge work as a podiatrist. And so your specialization is aesthetic and regenerative medicine. First of all, you just need to know, I love the name of your business, Soul Aesthetic. I love it. I absolutely love that. But tell us what you're doing. What is aesthetic and regenerative medicine, and what's unique about it?
Well, firstly, I wanted to set out to pretty much change the face of what podiatric medicine was. For years, people have had, just the stigma of what we do, when we do a lot more, than the typical, podiatrist that you're used to. Aesthetics basically includes using biologics such as hyaluronic acid, dermal filler. These are things that, you're used to plastics and cosmetic surgery. You're used to Botox in the face, like Botox for hyperhidrosis. That's been used for years, actually, for in the, oversweating in the armpits and the bottom of the feet, that type of thing. It's not new, but Botox is a buzzword in the cosmetic world because of wrinkles. But so that's one thing we do. Dermal filler, you've heard of hyaluronic acid or polylactic acid, which is absorbable sutures. We do that to increase cushion and volume in the bottom of the feet, which is something that happens as we mature, more so in women than men, but it happens to, both genders. As we mature, we lose fat in our feet, which actually decreases the quality of life, wanting to work out. Your feet hurt, you don't work out, you gain weight. We all know what happens, after that. So it's almost more of, even though it's labeled as an aesthetic, it almost becomes a more functional medicine. And as far as regenerative medicine, which is, my huge platform is, stem cell therapy. We all have heard of probably PRP or platelet-rich plasma. We've seen the research, the studies behind the benefits of using your own progenitor cells, your own stem cells that can help improve osteoarthritis, improve chronic tendonitis. So that's something we do as well. Bone marrow aspirate, where I basically aspirate bone marrow from the distal tibia. We centrifuge it down, inject it back into an arthritic joint. It also can benefit in post-op healing. Platelet-rich plasma, something that we can do in the office here, draw a patient's blood, spin it down, same thing. And it can be adjunctive therapy in a lot of chronic, issues, or chronic pain. So I've seen patients do amazing with it of all ages, from as young as, early 30s to my oldest patient at 72. Mm-hmm. So, our bodies have the ability to heal themselves. So let's tap into the ability to heal ourselves without having to resort to old school medicine, without having to resort to, steroid therapy, without having to resort to telling patients, well, you're going to sit out for 6 to 8 weeks, or, you got to stop working out. Let's try to, push patients to getting back to their best lifestyle, back to being functional, and this is one of the ways that we can do it.
Mm-hmm. So, we heard earlier with some of the other panelists, like some of the ways in which bodies are politicized, like, people, the intersection of race and ability or disability, looking at, even the Black athlete space, the way that they're treated, or the environmental conditions Dr. Gote just told us about. Are you in your area, on podiatry, are you finding also that bodies are politicized in a way that you're seeing certain issues or illnesses more pronounced in some communities of color or Black communities in particular?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say not more so specifically in the specialties that I do, the subspecialties that I do, but I mean, obviously we know that, diabetes is in obesity in the Black population, is disproportionate to other ethnicities and ethnic groups. And of course, we also know how diabetes and obesity and those things can affect the lower extremity. So absolutely, you're going to see a disproportionate amount of ethnicities of color in my profession. And unfortunately, it's not in the preventive side, it's in the limb salvage side. It's in, uncontrolled side, if you will. So you're looking at patients where we're trying to save, the rest of the body by amputating a toe, foot, or leg, so we do see that, unfortunately. So, but it's at end stage. And it's very disproportionate.
Right. So I hope the audience, understands the things that we've been talking about, the ways in which the bodies are politicized in a way that creates health impairments. Dr. King said out of all the inequities, health injustices are the most shocking and inhuman. And so, I really appreciate the ways that each of you are trying to contribute, to eradicating some of the health injustices. So now I want to shift gears and talk about, I want to celebrate, I want to highlight even more some of the things that you're doing. Dr. King also talked about education without social action is like a one-sided value. You have education, but if you're not imparting it, it's like a one-sided value. But he also says social action without education is a weak expression of pure energy. Like Dr. King just so rocks. Like his quotes are just so powerful and they're so relevant today. And his wife, Coretta Scott, told us, hey, we're doing him a disservice if we don't practice what he was preaching. So you all have been practicing what he's been preaching. So what I want to do, I want to actually go back to you, Dr. Gote, because, with some of the instances, like the Dr. Barrow was just talking about the incidences of diabetes in the Black community, we also know there's a 2019 report by Families USA. It says Black women are 52% more likely to die from cervical cancer, 40% more likely to die from breast cancer, and Black men, 20% more likely to die of colon cancer. You have been using education, science, and practice in a way that's really making a difference. Share with us the research that you've done that talks about the contribution of physical activity to cancer recovery.
Yeah, so this was some research that was funded through our university here at University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. We have a cancer center that was established a few years ago, and they are very supportive of social and behavioral sciences in addition to trying to develop new therapeutics that clinicians, oncologists, and surgeons could use during surgery or treatment of the disease. So as part of the project, we designed an exercise program for the community members. This was for cancer survivors. A lot of the cancer research tends to focus on specific cancer types or cancer stages. And we wanted to eliminate that and just keep it more of a broad brush to see whether cancer would benefit any cancer survivor, regardless of the stage, regardless of their cancer type. So we designed a 12-week exercise program, and we also wanted to test out whether there were different types of exercises that might be better suited or they might be better received by these cancer survivors. So we had a group that engaged in traditional aerobic exercise. That group did primarily walking or aerobic-based cardiovascular exercises. We had a group that did yoga. So we had a group of cancer survivors that we chose to engage in a 12-week yoga program. And then a group that did mostly stretching and strengthening based exercises. So exercises that are meant for muscle groups and joints and kind of keeping them in shape. Across the board, the program was very well received. So regardless of the type of exercise, all our cancer survivors said that they really enjoyed the program. They they thought it was really helpful. In our small kind of focus groups and kind of exit interviews, they actually mentioned to us that oftentimes they never got information about how to safely exercise after cancer. And so they were thankful for researchers who let them know that it can be done. It's good for you. It helps you. And a lot of them also expressed a lot of kind of anecdotal experiences about how it has helped improve somebody's sleep habits, or how they feel refreshed, how they don't feel fatigued anymore as they used to after a long day's work. So we got a lot of this kind of anecdotal feedback in addition to some of our more kind of research outcomes that we were looking at. Our main interest was to look at what we call cancer-related cognitive impairment. So there is some evidence that suggests that cancer, it's either the disease or the treatments or a combination of these things that tend to result in a chemo brain or a chemo fog, as it's often labeled, that these patients seem to have some difficulty, and it's not clear whether it's just temporary or if it's more of a permanent difficulty or disability, but they complain about these memory lapses. And we were looking at whether exercise and these 3 types of exercises would help improve some of those symptoms. So right now we are in the stages of finalizing our data and our outcomes. And we see trends that, in fact, all the groups, regardless of whether they did yoga, aerobics, or even stretching and strengthening, they all seem to show improved symptoms or reduced symptoms of these cognitive complaints. I think by and large, the biggest effect that we see is on sleep habits. So most of the participants, regardless of the type of exercise, said that they felt like they slept a lot better, and that helped them wake up refreshed and ready to go for the day.
Mm-hmm. And I want to continue with that line, because this same study in 2019, and it was by the Families USA. It's like, again, a nonpartisan type of entity that's the voice of healthcare consumers. And it also reported that Black women were 60% more likely to have high blood pressure. Black men were 30% more likely to have high blood pressure. Consequently, Black people were 44% more likely to die of a stroke. You also have done research to look at, and you sort of alluded to some of that in your previous reply, how physical activity impacts cognitions that could also impact stroke survival, stroke recovery. Talk about that.
Yeah, so this was again some work we did in collaboration with the Rehab Institute of Michigan when I was at Wayne State University, and I connected with some of the physical therapists, the occupational therapists, who we got talking, and we said, we see improvements in these stroke survivors after their acute event, when they are going through their recovery, and they come see their therapist regularly during their recovery phases. But once those phases are done, once the insurance runs out, and then they are back in their homes and they have to try and sustain that exercise or the rehabilitation, it's on them to keep up with that exercise. That is when they seem to struggle. So we interviewed and we worked with some of these stroke survivors. And again, we saw that it doesn't take a lot to see improvements. So it was coming back to that concept about light exercise. They do not have to get on a treadmill and run. They do not have to go get a gym membership, but it's just doing a little bit more movement and a little bit less sitting that seems to benefit and help with health outcomes.
Yeah, great. Well, very good. I mean, again, and the reason we're doing this to illuminate the different ways in which movement is power in recovering from a stroke, power in eliminating the other health disparities, diabetes and stroke and high blood pressure, all of these types of things. So now I want to go to you, Dr. Keith, because you have are the co-creator of an award-winning program that I think is so unique, because it's something that many in the academy struggle with. How do we blend what we're doing to impact the community? So you have an event, award-winning, I love the acronym, it's pronounced PARCS, but it's physically active residential communities and schools. And from what I read, you're serving almost 4,000 children and adults in the inner cities of Indianapolis. I just think that's amazing. Talk to us about that program.
Sure. So the program has been in existence for 18 years, and I know that because my son is 17, and so he grew up with the program. When I got to Indianapolis and got to our Department of Kinesiology, I identified an issue that our students were only getting experience with each other. And we all know kinesiology majors don't look like the rest of the world. Most of them are young and active and healthy. I was also doing some clinical research and was shadowing physicians mostly and seeing that physicians weren't referring their patients to exercise. And our students weren't getting internships because they didn't have experience with real people. Physicians weren't referring their patients to exercise because they said they didn't have any place to go and nothing to do, or they wouldn't know what to do. I said, we have really great walkable communities. Why don't you just have them walk outside? And as Dr. Gote alluded to, wild dogs was really a problem in Indianapolis back then. And so it wasn't that there was high crime, but there were a bunch of wild dogs, like packs running around at the time. And so I started getting this idea that maybe we could go into the schools and use those facilities after school. And so we started sending our students to do service learning in the form of personal training and group exercise, and having the physicians refer their patients to our students where they could help them become physically active. And the schools loved it because their community members are their taxpayers, and they wanted to re-engage people who didn't have kids in the school anymore to just keep the schools open. And so it was a win-win-win situation. Our students were learning from these community members who had a rich history. They were all kinds of people. So most of them are from low-income communities. Many of them are underrepresented minorities, but they understand history. And so our students were learning so much from them. Some of them were completely healthy. Most of them had comorbidities. Most of the people have some kind of chronic illness that could be positively influenced by physical activity participation. So it's a win for the patients who get referred. And it's a win for my colleagues because we can teach in the classroom and then tie what the students are learning in the classroom to what they're doing in the community. And it's a win for the university because it looks good that our students are engaged civically. So it's a win-win-win. And it's mostly because I had some administrators at first when I said we're going to send our students to inner city schools and they're going to meet adults there and exercise. People thought that will never work. That's not safe. The kids are going to have problems. The students are going to have problems. We've not had a problem in 18 years. The students and the community members really enjoy one another. And something interesting that has happened is that many of our students now live in those communities because the cost of rent is cheaper in those communities and they're comfortable there. The other kind of good thing is 18 years, we have students in our department who learned about kinesiology in high school because of our students and decided to come to IUPUI to learn. So it's really been a great program.
Yeah, it sounds like, and I think it's a model when we try to do what Dr. King reminded us, to use education and action to impact our communities. I think the program that you just described is doing just that and is serving as a great lab for teaching, research, and service. So kudos in that regard. Dr. Barrows, I want to go to you next. I just want to also say a huge kudos to your entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, the mere fact that, for 13 years, I guess you were doing surgery and working in the other's capacity, and you decided to branch out on your own and launch your own business. I mean, being a Black woman healthcare entrepreneur, that's no small feat. So I want to say kudos there.
And you know what? I just found out today is Women's Entrepreneurship Day.
Look at that.
I was like, slip my mind.
The stars are aligned. and we know in many regards, one of the reasons that there was a rash of new businesses by women and people of color was because of the dismay of what was happening in the traditional establishments. So you offer unique care. Talk about the traditional business model of healthcare and what you do relative to patient care and what's needed in your space when we talk about healthcare in the industry.
Well, let me start out by saying that, when I first started out, I did join a large group, when I was fresh out of residency. And it was multiple locations. It was actually, I was in Connecticut for about 7 years. That's why I first started practicing. I'm born and raised Houston, did my residency in Houston, started practicing there and then relocated back here. So I've had experience with a lot of different models. I did working as an associate. I actually worked for a large ACO where you just kind of clock in, clock out type of situation. And then I've worked as a contracted position. So I've kind of had a lot of different experience in different avenues. So that helped me to build the foundation of what I wanted, because it really lets you know how you want to practice medicine and how you want to treat your patients, because you figure out very quickly what you don't want to do. In the large ACO, I have to say that it wasn't necessarily the business and medicine model that I wanted to, continue with. The way I want to practice medicine, I felt like I couldn't do my patients, it was a disservice to my patients. I felt like, we do see that more and more nowadays, where a lot of doctors are being inundated with large patient load, kind of in and out, you quickly, have to think of a quick decision making, get to the next patient. You're booked 40 patients, a day, 2 patients every 10 minutes. You don't get to know the person. You don't get to know, the patient, because that is pertinent in how we figure out, how am I going to treat this patient? What is, what's feasible for them to follow a treatment plan. You get to know them, you get to know their lifestyle, you get to know, where they work, what they do outside of work. They may be a caregiver. I can't tell a patient, oh, go do this, and they're taking care of mom, or taking care of, elderly parents, or have multiple children. So you get to know a lot more when you're in the private practice setting, such as myself. And I felt like that was the best way that I could practice medicine with my patients. And then you would see the continuity of care, because the patients would continue to come back to you. You have almost a direct line to the patients. They can contact you. Some of my patients have my cell phone. I check on them regularly, so that's what I wanted. And that was the reason that I wanted to open my own practice, in addition to some of the things that I offer now that I would have never been able to offer, in the other, avenues that I was practicing. Some of the, experimental medicine, some of the, stem cell is still considered experimental, even though a lot of the research is out there. There is evidence-based medicine that we see that it does provide, is beneficial. But in larger models, you're just not able to do those different things. You're kind of looking at the traditional, steroid, oral medication, physical therapy, and you're out for 6 to 8 weeks or whatever, when we have so many different things that we can offer our patients. And, life's about options. I love giving my patients options from A to Z. We can do this, and everything in between. And it's important that patients know that they can have control over their outcome. I'm just not giving them one option, and so I like to be able to work with patients like that, and having my own medical practice was the way that I could do that.
Right. I want to ask you one other thing. We try to do a lot with preparing people to be culturally competent. To have a level of cultural competence. I don't think you can ever arrive at competence. The human dynamics is just too complex for anyone to master. So a level of cultural competence, cultural sensitivity, cultural humility, are these concepts overstated or understated when we talk about health care, delivering care, particularly to individuals from marginalized communities? Is that really important, or is it overstated?
Oh, it's very important. Absolutely. To be able to be that relatable face, to be able to reach, someone of every, socioeconomic level and status. It's very important, because, patients will gravitate toward, what speaks to them and what they look like. And so one of the benefits, that I feel like I can bring to the field is that, I grew up in 3rd Ward in Houston, which back in the day is considered the hood. I grew up in the hood, I went to University of Michigan, and so I'm able to speak to, many levels and many different, like I said, socioeconomic levels, and become that relatable face to those patients. I like to practice what I preach what I practice. Patients will see me running and say, look, we want to talk about a healthy lifestyle. I live it, and this is how we can do it, you know? So it's in the whole, like, I think you mentioned about the fit and fashionable, and that's my big platform. Patients will relate like, well, you know, she wears heels. I want to wear heels. I want to, you know, it makes me feel confident about myself. You know, when patients feel confident about themselves, they tend to be more compliant, you know? And so that's huge, you know, that they can see, you know, someone that looks like them. And, you know, so someone that understands their lifestyle or their wants or their needs or their desires, you know, to help them get back to their best self, because all that plays into overall health.
Right, right. And I love your mantra of fit and fashionable. And I can only imagine the kind of fun that you all have. I can only imagine. Yeah. So thank you. Dr. Hodge, I want to go to you now because Dr. Barrow just really, she's talking about representation also. We know representation matters. With Dr. Keith, I mean, you're the first Black person to be the president of the American College of Sport Medicine, you know, and just like our vice president-elect, you know, Kamala Harris says, you know, I may be the first, but I won't be the last. But for us to diversify these professions, it takes a lot of energy. Dr. Hodge, you have been in this space for a long time. You've been trying to make our professorate in the academy way more diverse. And I know you've been doing this back 15 years ago. When we were at Ohio State, I remember a DEI plan when it wasn't the cool thing to do. It wasn't the thing that was welcomed by entities. I mean, you had to fight for it, but you really moved the needle. You made a difference. But I read somewhere where you said, we need to reposition our thinking about race, civility, and social justice. Everybody's trying to do this diversity thing. Some are doing it better than others. What do you mean by the need for us to reposition our position on race and social justice and civility?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2014, I wrote a paper that was called Ideological Repositioning Race, Social Justice, and Promise. And in that paper, I asserted that racial categories that were invented in the 17th, 18th centuries are still alive today, and they are still used by people as social cultural creations. I also asserted that race itself was invented as a mechanism for division, and it created conflict, division which centralized whiteness. Still, again, we can look at today's world. And this notion of a post-race era is really just a myth because racial ideologies still exist even today. I also made the argument that integration, as we talk about Martin Luther King Jr., who, of course, we know was outstanding as it relates to integration, civil rights era and beyond. His legacy certainly exists, but I made the argument that integration was necessary but insufficient, that we need an ideological repositioning beyond just having differences in terms of people in the same spaces. We need to rethink how we understand and position the human experience to be more inclusive, but to not think of it as I'm including this group with this group, but that all groups belong from the very essence and the very start. So I see ideological repositioning as justice advocacy, not social justice advocacy, but justice advocacy, because justice is much broader than social. It's health, it's environmental, it's law, it's criminal justice system, it's all of these institutions. And so I call it justice advocacy, and it is the changing of the way that we think and position ourselves in our society. And we know that there are these justice issues that have been talked about by the various panelists today. We also know that there are some strategies that have proven to be effective as it relates to the recruitment, the mentoring, the training of persons both in the health profession as well as in education. And if more people are in tune into those strategies, then certainly that's a part of making that change.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, I really appreciate and applaud your work in this space, you know, for a long time. And so now there's more widespread acceptance of the kinds of things that you've been talking about for a long time. And so, again, thank you for the work that you're done. So unfortunately, we're almost out of time. We just need more time. Like, this is way too much fun to have to pull the plug now. But in respect to the time of you, our panelists, and those of you in the audience, I'm going to conclude it now. But what I really appreciate the audience, the panelists sharing with us your wisdom and your insight. Illustrating how body politics, how bodies are politicized because of their race, their gender, their age, their ability, and the intersections thereof, and their social class and their environment. All of these things impact health and wellness. All of these things impact their quality of life. And so movement contributes to empowering them by helping to eliminate some of these health disparities. So thank you so much, panelists, for sharing your insight. I kind of almost feel we need to have a part 2, because there's so much more we need to talk about, but I'll pause for now. And as I conclude, Dr. King also told us that we must focus our creativity on the useful things that translate into power. The creative things that we're doing that translate into power. I think panelists, I've tried to elevate and illustrate all the useful things that you're doing that are translating into power. Each of you in your own space, you're making a difference, and we sincerely appreciate it. We know knowledge is power. We know information is power, and I'm wondering if Dr. King wasn't a kinesiologist. Because let me tell you what, Dr. King once he commanded us. He said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you must move forward. So I hope that those of you in the audience, that we've inspired you to move, literally and figuratively, in your own space, and to join this crusade and this revolution for movement as racial empowerment to help eradicate and eliminate the health disparities that are plaguing communities of color and Black communities in particular. So thank you so much again. I want to say a huge thank you to the wonderful panelists. You have been absolutely awesome. So thank you so much. And thanks again to the Health Sciences Committee members, the Health Sciences Dean, for your support. Thanks to my kinesiology marketing and planning team. And many thanks to those of you who are out in the Zoom land who decided to spend a portion of your day with us. I want to remind you all to stay safe, to stay healthy, and to stay hopeful. Also, have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday in whatever way, whatever way you celebrate it. So that's it for now. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this, and peace and blessings to you all. Goodbye for now.